The gavel hovered in the stale courtroom air like an executioner's weapon, trembling in Judge Harrison's weathered, liver-spotted hand. His knuckles bone-white from the grip, beads of sweat snaking down the deep creases of his forehead as the weight of what he was about to do pressed against his very soul. But the bulging briefcase of crisp cash, hidden beneath his desk, whispered coldly that this verdict had been decided long before Mamadou ever stepped foot inside. In the defendant's chair, the boy sat rigid, just 16 years old yet already face-to-face with a system designed to crush him. His dark eyes glistening with that unique terror only the truly innocent understand when staring into the abyss of injustice. His thin frame caving inwards as though trying to disappear into the oversized suit his mother had borrowed from a neighbor, the sleeves swallowing his wrists, the fabric draping from his shoulders like a burial shroud. Around him, the air was heavy, almost unbreathable. The courtroom swollen with bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, their murmurs weaving a low, tense symphony, every face etched with grim expectation, for they had seen this before, too many times. A young life, black and breathing, swallowed whole by a system that devours its own children. In the front row, Mamadou's mother Aminata, her face a weathered map of hardship and endurance, clutched her worn prayer beads with both hands as though gripping the last rope holding her to hope, her lips moving in a silent, urgent rhythm, sending desperate pleas to Allah for a miracle that felt as far away as the stars. Judge Harrison cleared his throat, the sound scraping through the air like a death rattle, and began to deliver the sentence, each word tasting of poison in his mouth. Madou Sankura, you have been found guilty of armed robbery and assault. When the heavy wooden doors at the back of the courtroom burst inward with a deafening crash that tore the room's tension in half, the sound ricocheting off marble and mahogany like the voice of divine judgment, freezing every whisper, every breath, every heartbeat. All heads turned in unison, drawn by a force they couldn't name, to witness a sight that felt like history breaking its way into the present. President Ibrahim Traoré striding down the central aisle with the measured, unhurried confidence of a man who has never known defeat. His pristine military uniform a tapestry of medals and honor, every insignia catching the unforgiving fluorescent light until it blazed like captured lightning. His presence altering the very molecular structure of the room so that the air seemed thicker, heavier, charged with something primal. Each polished boot strike against the marble echoed like war drums heralding the arrival of justice itself, the rhythm thrumming in every chest. Judge Harrison's blood drained from his face as recognition struck, his jaw slack, the gavel slipping from his nerveless fingers and striking the bench with a crack that rang out like a gunshot, shattering the thin illusion of legitimacy that had shielded this charade. Aminata gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, hope erupting in her eyes like a sudden flame in darkness, while the prosecutor, Coulibaly, the vulture who had built his career by manufacturing guilt from innocence, shifted violently in his seat, his smirk evaporating into the cold sweat of a man whose lies were about to be gutted in the open. Traoré's gaze swept the courtroom, slow and deliberate, the way a predator sizes up wounded prey, and when his eyes locked on the pale, trembling mask of Judge Harrison, the temperature in the room seemed to plunge by 10 degrees, the silence stretching until it was on the verge of snapping. And then, in a voice that cut through the air like a blade forged in righteous fire, calm yet carrying the weight of a continent's wrath, he spoke, each syllable deliberate, unhurried, and heavy enough to make mountains tremble and corrupt men pray for mercy. The words seemed to vibrate in the very air, heavy with a promise that could mean salvation or damnation, though for whom, no one dared guess. As President Ibrahim Traoré reached inside his immaculate military jacket and drew forth a thick manila envelope, the simple motion somehow more dangerous, more final, than if he had drawn a weapon. His unblinking dark eyes never strayed from Judge Harrison's increasingly ashen face, each step toward the bench ticking down like the last moments before a detonation, the envelope in his grip appearing almost alive, pulsing with malevolent energy, and every soul in that courtroom understood instinctively that whatever was trapped within those paper walls held the power to ruin reputations, topple careers, dismantle entire lives, and perhaps even reshape their very concept of truth and innocence. The tension was no longer a background hum. It was a living, breathing entity, and the only question now hanging in the suffocating air was not if justice would finally be served, but whether anyone in that room would survive the impact of what was about to be revealed. I believe there are certain facts about this case that have been deliberately hidden from this court, Traoré declared, his voice resonating like divine judgment, each word deliberate, unavoidable, and heavy enough to send ripples of dread through every corrupt soul. His inexorable march to the bench turning the room into a stage where guilt itself was on trial. Judge Harrison's hands trembled so violently he was forced to grip the edge of his bench, his knuckles whitening under the strain of pretending at composure. The sight of the manila envelope, held like a weapon, not mere paperwork, sending ice into the marrow of those with secrets to hide. Prosecutor Coulibaly's Adam's apple bobbed frantically as he swallowed, his throat suddenly as dry as desert sand, the swagger that had carried him through decades of manufactured convictions now crumbling like ancient parchment before flame. "Mr. President," Judge Harrison stammered, his voice cracking with adolescent fragility, "this is highly irregular. You cannot, simply cannot." And then the word exploded from Traoré's lips with such force that the very air shuddered and several spectators physically recoiled in their seats. His dark eyes blazing with the kind of fury that topples governments and rewrites destinies. "Cannot," he roared, the syllables like molten steel. "Tell me, Your Honor, what exactly can I not do in my own country when I discover that my people's children are being fed to the wolves by those sworn to protect them?" And with that, the envelope came down hard on the bench with a whip-crack slap, its contents spilling across the polished mahogany like the spilled entrails of a gutted beast. Photographs and documents scattering in every direction as spectators strained to catch even a glimpse of the truth now loosed into the open. "This young man," Traoré thundered, his voice swelling with righteous fury until the very walls seemed to tremble, "has been framed by a network of corruption that reaches into the highest levels of our judicial system, a cancer eating away at the heart of justice itself." And in that moment Mamadou's tears of terror shifted into something new, something almost like hope, as his unexpected savior took control with the precision of a battlefield commander. From the gallery, Aminata's sobs changed timbre, carrying threads of relief instead of despair, as if her prayers had been answered in real time. Judge Harrison's shaking hands reached toward the scattered evidence, each photograph, each bank statement.